Well, the United States says that Russia is planning to annex more of Ukrainian territory. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that Moscow intends to organize sham referendums to formally take possession of Ukrainian territory under its control. Kirby said that Russia was targeting the regions of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, and all of the Donetsk and Luhansk.
Annexation by force would be a gross violation of the UN Charter, and we will not allow it to go unchallenged or unpunished. We will continue to provide Ukraine with historic levels of security assistance. Later this week, the administration will announce the next presidential drawdown package of weapons and equipment for Ukraine. It will be the 16th such drawdown to support Ukraine since the president took office.
And on the ground, Russian missiles struck a residential area of Kramatorsk, a city in eastern Ukraine, on Tuesday. At least one person has died. Several others were wounded. Russian troops are increasingly targeting the city as they try to push further into the Donbas region.
A Russian airstrike in the heart of Kramatorsk. This woman is praying for her son-in-law, who was severely injured in the attack.
I felt a really powerful explosion, and I understood it was somewhere here. I called my daughter, and she said that Maxim was not picking up the phone. He must have been knocked off then. They said he was unconscious, in critical condition. My daughter said the doctors think the outlook is bad.
We were walking out of the grocery store, and at that moment, there was a blast. 3 minutes later, we walked into our yard and we saw this picture. A man, our neighbor Max, was lying near our car. We called the ambulance, but it only arrived 20 minutes later.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy condemned the strike in Kramatorsk, as well as the several others across the country, calling them acts of terror. Meanwhile, Russian forces are keeping up their bombardments of cities across Ukraine.
The Russians are more aggressive now. It feels like they're firing with their eyes closed. They shell everything. Before, they at least tried to hit certain targets, but now they are much more aggressive. There are many of them, but we will manage. We have no other option.
After days of heavy fighting, Ukraine says it has managed to push back Russian troops in parts of Donetsk. They say Russian forces have suffered heavy casualties. Ukrainian leaders say it will be the timely delivery of enough Western weapons and ammunition that will ultimately decide the course of the war.
And for more, let's bring in Matthias Bollinger, who is in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Matthias, I'd just like to begin with the news from the United States saying that they have evidence that Moscow could be, or could make moves, rather, to annex Ukrainian territory. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, specifically the U.S. has warned that Russia could hold referendums in these territories. That would mean the two territories of Donetsk and Luhansk, parts of which have been occupied since 2014, or by these self-proclaimed republics, and the newly conquered territories in Kherson, the region of Kherson, and the parts of Zaporizhzhia that are under Russian control. So these coastal lines that Russia has conquered since February. That Russia has been preparing to annex these territories or to proclaim the republics similar to those in Donetsk and Luhansk and these two other territories, that something was going on there, is already clear for a long time. Russia has given out passports in the newly conquered regions, and Russia has switched the mobile operators and the TV networks to the Russians, to the Russian one. There have been attempts to introduce the ruble as a currency in these territories. So all these preparations have been going on. What the new warning of the US is that they they have given a timeline, a probable timeline for these actions to happen, that these leaders, these Russia-appointed leaders of these regions might hold a referendum already in September, although there have been already warnings about possible referendums or preparations for referendums before, but it seems that the Russians so far have not considered it safe to proclaim these. We also should not forget there's considerable activity especially in the southern territories by Ukrainian resistance fighters, and that it was not safe so far, but the preparations are going on.
Tell us a little bit more about the latest activity on the ground. I mean, we just heard about this attack in Kramatorsk, for example.
Yes, so in Kramatorsk, a residential area was hit. The same was the case in Odessa and in Mykolaiv, where Ukraine says cluster bombs have been applied. I think these attacks in the south, Odessa and Mykolaiv, are a sign that Russia is not relenting from its claims to the region. Russia has tried to move on to Odessa since the beginning of the war, but was stopped in Mykolaiv, and now with the possible Ukrainian counter-offensive going on in the Kherson region, Russia seems to be asserting its claims to the region, although they cannot advance militarily at the moment. And in the Donbas, indiscriminate shelling of residential areas has been going on for weeks in several parts of the region that are within artillery range, plus rockets being fired on those places that are a little bit further. So this is actually, sadly, nothing new. And of course, one of the tactics that we might suspect behind these indiscriminate and random shellings of residential areas is, of course, intimidation of the population, which has not really worked so far here in Ukraine.
Matthias Bollinger, thank you very much.